We're going to go ahead and start our rainforest debate, Amazon rainforest. So as far as terrestrial oxygen production goes, the Amazon rainforest is really the largest producer of oxygen on land. I mean, there's more oxygen produced, obviously, in the ocean. And also, if you look at the enormous amount of fresh water that comes down through the Amazon rainforest and eventually tributaries to the Amazon River, and I've seen pictures from outer space, and the amount of fresh water flows out. I can't remember how far it is into the Atlantic Ocean. It's like 100 miles or something like that. Just an enormous amount of fresh water. What we've learned is that the rainforest, tropical rainforest, is the most diverse terrestrial biome, has the most biodiversity, most species living there, especially up in the canopy. And so it's incredibly important what's going on in the Amazon rainforest. One of the ecological disasters which are occurring right now is that the Amazon rainforest is being cut in what they call slash and burn. And this is being done with the approval of the Brazilian government. And basically what's going on is that they're trying to clear areas there so they can use the land for raising cattle, other types of livestock, for growing crops and so forth, and urban development to a certain point. And this is what happens as an economy is transitioning. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to assume different roles and debate how we should go ahead and use up the Amazon rainforest. So let's go ahead and take a look at our activity here. I'm just going to open it on up here. Okay. And so the first thing that's going to go on is that you will all be assigned different roles to play. And I've listed the roles here: Brazilian government politicians, spokesperson for indigenous tribes, residents from Rio de Janeiro, huge city on the coast. You're a professor from a school of tropical medicine, CEO, head of a global meat processing company, the Toucan Travel Agency, right? And just a campaigner for Greenpeace. And I've listed here what are your concerns and something about your organization there. And so when we delegate the land there, I put an outline here of what possible uses you could have for your land. You could have it be recreational, conserves to protect animals, urban development, could be just controlled by the government and so forth, indigenous land. And you're briefly going to go ahead and start by putting in what percentages you should have here. Now, obviously, you're going to put in a significant percentage for the type of group you are. So if I was a government politician, obviously I'd want the government to control a large portion here, but you can't put 100% in there. You want it to be reasonable. And the idea here in our debate is you want other people to buy into your idea. So you have to be realistic in how you delegate your land. Okay, here's how we're going to go ahead and start. So you've picked a group you're going to be in, and the first thing I'd like you to do is I'd like you to come up with an emblem for your group. And the reason why we're going to do this is that eventually we're going to go ahead and form our tables in sort of a conference square so that we can have a debate, and you'll have a poster in front of you that will have your emblem there. So for example, let's suppose I was the Interior Department of Brazil. This might be my emblem. And I'll print these big posters out and then have them in front of your table. So you're going to start off here by putting up your report form. So everybody brings up a report form. Now, you're going to go ahead and share this form with the people on your group, so you're all going to work on it together. And the first thing you'll do is you'll go ahead and insert your emblem over here. So that's how we're going to start. Okay? Now you're going to start to put together your opening speech. And there's a lot of parts to the speech. Now my recommendation is that you divide the speech up into your individuals, so you don't have one person do the whole thing. What would your speech cover? Well, the first part of the speech would be introducing your group, telling us who your history is, what your concerns are, and so forth, who you represent. And then we'll go ahead and get into more specific information. So why is the rainforest important to you? And you don't have to cover all of these things here. You might want to just cover maybe 2 or 3 that have to do with what you're advocating. Okay? Number 3, what is going to be the impact? So we're going to present your plan. How would your plan impact the other groups and the people of Brazil? And so you can't just go ahead and say, well, we're for urban development. We want to mow down the entire rainforest. And the impact on all of you is that you're in trouble because you're going to get nothing. So you have to be reasonable when you talk about the impact and maybe mitigating the impact. And finally, what is your overall proposal then for your rainforest? So if you go back to where we wrote down here what percentages you think should be allocated there, you kind of have to explain it. Now, you don't have to explain every single piece of this. Just give us the big points here. My anticipation is that you'll write your opening statement down here, put the name of the person who's probably doing each part, and my idea is that probably, it's maybe 1 or 2 minutes per person to do the opening statement. Okay, I'm going to help you out with the opening statement here by giving you 2 things, right? And the first is that if you look over here, I've put a video here. So we're going to watch this video, and this is going to tell us a lot about what's going on in the rainforest. And the other thing I've done to help you out here is that I've gone ahead and I've put a bunch of resources for you at the bottom of the sheet. You don't have to use these resources, and you can use some on your own, but here's a bunch of resources to kind of help get you started. So writing the opening speech is the major part. All right. Once we've written the speeches, and that's going to take us at least a day or 2 to do, we're going to go ahead and do the debate. And so here's the debate. And we'll organize ourselves into a square-like round table. That sounds like a contradiction there. Each group will then give its opening statements. Now, what the other groups are going to do while this is happening, so let's look at our Rainforest speech report that you've all shared with each other, right? So this is the form you've shared. You're going to go ahead and listen to everybody's opening statement, and you're going to write them a question. Now, you're not going to write a question for yourself. So if I'm the tropical medicine school, I'm not going to write a question for myself, but you're going to write a question for each of the groups. Now, you might want to divide this work up between your groups, not have one person write all the questions, maybe each person do 2 questions. Then, once everybody has finished their speeches, then you're going to go ahead and ask them the question. So we'll go around the table, everyone will ask one question, and we're going to listen to what their response is. Now, I know a lot of you are going to have trouble doing responses. You can go ahead and take a few liberties and make up information if you want, but think about it as theater. You're playing a role. What would they say? What's a reasonable answer? And then you'll write down the responses there. Okay? So in other words, speeches, everyone's going to ask a question of the speakers, and then the speakers are all going to give a response to the question. Once we've done all of this, then we'll go ahead and decide what our final plan is. And we'll go here to the final land allocation decision. And then what you're going to do is each group, here's your groups here, will then reallocate percentage-wise, so these should add up to 100 here, how much each one would get based on what you heard. So maybe 20, 25, 2, and so on like this should add up to 100, right? And then these will be averaged here, and we'll see then what is our average plan for using the rainforest.